Now let's take a closer look at some of the hurdles facing children with autism as we're joined by Autism South Africa's National Director, Sandy Usswald. Good afternoon to you and welcome. So you've just been watching that report along with me. Those waiting lists that we're talking about for assistance and care, how long are they? Is this a real problem?
It's frightening all over the country. And in the Western Cape and Gauteng, the situation certainly is better than any of the other provinces. Some of the other provinces don't even have one school that will accept our children that are on the spectrum. Gauteng certainly has developed, and they are opening a few more schools that are autism specific. Western Cape has 3 government schools that will accept our children, and the rest of the country, the situation is very dire.
So when a child doesn't get into an institution like that, what hope do they have?
The reality is if they have money, they can go to a private facility or organisation, school, and the rest. But
given that's not always the case, though,
exactly.
is it? Yeah.
The rest generally stay at home with a grandparent or a sibling that will look after them at home. Unfortunately, that's the reality of South Africa.
And often it's specialised care that is needed in terms of looking after them, and there would be a specific skill set that is required. Difficult for family members to have that. So what impact then on longer term development might that have on the child?
Early intervention, we know with autism, really improves the prognosis of their development. It's never too late for intervention, and families can be empowered and upskilled as their children grow older. Organisations such as ours try and ensure that there's a network of families that can reach out to each other, that the family isn't isolated, left on their own with no idea of what to do. We try and connect those families so that families further along that journey can actually connect properly and make a difference, a tangible difference to those children.
Given that we have so many competing health priorities in this country, do you get concerned sometimes that this particular condition is one that is simply shunted to the sidelines because it perhaps doesn't enjoy the high profile that other conditions do?
It's so true, and we always call it an invisible disability because you can't look at somebody and know that they have autism. It's only once you start interacting with that individual you realize there's something a bit different here, and that alone comes with such a stigma in our country and all over the world actually.
How does that stigma manifest itself?
Generally, in our South African environment, mom is blamed for bringing this curse into the family. She's then isolated from the rest of the family and lands up generally being a single mom raising a child with autism. That's really the purpose of days like this. It's really to spread that awareness, to make sure that people talk about autism. We always say the first rule about autism is talk about autism, so that we can get the message out that it's not only about awareness, but we need to get to appreciation of people on the autism spectrum.
It's horrific that you use the word curse in terms of some of these children, but that's true, isn't it? That's what it is.
It's the belief that we're really fighting to relieve all our families of.
So how do you raise the awareness then? I mean, a single day like this is all very well and good to have people like you and me talking about this, but, you know, tomorrow we all move on. Your challenge, I guess, is to manage a degree of sustainability in this respect. How do you do that?
That's right. And what we especially try and do is make sure that parents are empowered to be their own children's advocates, because the more of them that are talking about autism, the message will get out there. We need far more than just one day. And if we look at 2% of our population, that's over 1 million people affected by autism in South Africa. It's over 1 million families that can be talking about autism and really spreading the knowledge, awareness, acceptance and appreciation out there.
One report says that it is the fastest growing disorder in the United States of America. The United States calling it a global health crisis. Was that over-amplifying it a bit?
I'm not sure I would call it a crisis. People on the autism spectrum really do have value that they can offer society. And there's also debate in terms of it being a growing condition. Autism has actually always been there. It's just because the awareness is spreading and professionals now know how to diagnose these individuals that it appears to be more, but it's always been there.
We spoke to the health MEC for Gauteng a little earlier today, and she was very confident about the pre-screening that is happening at schools in order to understand the condition a whole lot earlier. And then, as you say, early intervention makes things a whole lot better. Is she right? Is school screening as good as it should be?
Definitely not. I was excited to hear that part of her interview, but it's certainly not the reality of the families that we work with.
So where does it fail then?
I wish I knew. I really do. And I think the screening really needs to happen much earlier. It needs to happen at the ECD centres. It needs to happen at those primary healthcare clinics where mom brings her baby in to have those healthcare checks. And when mom says, there's something a bit different with my child, the health professions need to take note of it and not just say, don't worry, he's a little boy, he'll grow out of it. They need to be taken.
I mean, those are the last words you want to hear, is he'll grow out of it.
Absolutely.
Or she'll grow out of it. But is it, when you talk about a mother coming in saying there is something slightly different, what is something slightly different?
So generally the pattern, and every single person on the autism spectrum is very different from one another, but generally the pattern is that mom realizes either the child hasn't started with first words or doesn't interact with her maybe the way the child's siblings do. So maybe there's not big smiles or following mom's pointing. Maybe the child doesn't pay too much attention to the other children in the family. It's very subtle, but mom generally is the first person.
And it's the subtlety, I would suggest to you, that is the problem, though. It's a very difficult condition to define because across that spectrum there's so many different ranges of behavior that sometimes it might not be autism at all.
You're right, and it is very difficult, and it's only diagnosed by observation. An observation of generally the gold standard is a very skilled team of health professionals that should diagnose.
What are they observing? What are they looking at?
The behavior,
yeah.
The interaction, the child's communication. There's no blood test or urine test that will say, yes, this is definitely autism. Doctors are often quite reluctant to diagnose too early. I always say to families, you don't actually need to wait for that label. You don't need to wait for that diagnosis. Look at the child in front of you. Let's see what that child specifically needs right now, and let's start with intervention.
Thank you very much for joining us. Autism South Africa's National Director, Sandy Usswald, with us here on Newsday.